operated against Israel and against the entire world. Today, they were destroyed together with everyone who operated there. Our message to the authority, we will know how to reach each and every one of you. In the bunkers, in the headquarters, in any other place. No one is invincible there. No one is immune. We also attacked the center of the internal security. And they're the ones who repressed in most horrific manner, killing them in the thousands and tens of thousands. At this very hour, hundreds of aircraft are attacking and working in Iran. We are locating and attacking areas, military areas. We have attacked 60 centers of missiles and destroyed many of them. And we are destroying their defense centers, their air-to-aircraft missiles and others. These all are possible thanks to the initial attacks by us. The Air Force paved the road to the path to be able to do this in the following days. We are continuing with all force. Citizens of Israel, vis-a-vis the area, we are aware of your apprehension, and these are very challenging days and very tense ones. Your strength your welfare is our highest priority. Please, again I stress, listen and follow the instructions of the headquarters of the rear. Act responsibly. It saves lives. You must know your backing of us. This is our backing. You are the secret of our strength. Together we'll be able to meet every challenge. We'll continue to be here with you and update you with every development. Questions? Challenge 13. Can you tell us anything? Staying in the bomb shelter is still nevertheless a good idea? Yes, absolutely yes. I feel to all Israelis listen to the instructions of the headquarters of the rear guard. This has been proven. We have the experience going into safe rooms and bunkers. Listen to them. There's no doubt whatsoever. Chapter 12. How much time does IDF still needs that you really reach all the goals that you wanted to reach and change it's not even a second day. It's not 48 hours yet. We're working non-stop. We have specified goals. We're continuing and deepening the attacks. We will continue until we reach our targets. It will last as long as necessary. Trump says he's willing to have negotiations. If it were to end now, the operation, look, we attacked the terrorist authorities, very difficult attack on them. We have goals. We will continue to act and to intensify the attacks, and also in accordance with instructions. Challenge 24. Why the nuclear sites have not been attacked? We have a wide areas of attacks. And I'm not going to divulge here our plans of the Air Force plans, when and where and how we're going to attack. We have shown our seriousness and we will continue doing it. Ma'ariv newspaper. You expect Hezbollah to get into the fight? And might you do a defensive attack, a preemptive attack against Hezbollah in the north? We are prepared and ready. About 100,000 additional reservists have been called to man all our borders. Especially about the Hezbollah in Lebanon. If someone would dare to attack Israeli citizens, we will attack them without a doubt. We'll attack them with tremendous force. Thank you very much.
All right, we have senior correspondent Benjamin Hall now to react to this with me. Benjamin, I know you were last in Israel shortly after October 7th, and that region is being impacted in untold ways now by what the U.S. and Israel have just done and continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you and I first met in Israel back in 2018. You look at how much that region has changed and how Iran has really fallen to its knees. You know, back then, I remember its proxies were strong, its terror groups were strong, and it basically controlled all these swathes. Iran right now is in a corner. It doesn't quite know where to go. And interesting to hear the IDF spokesman there saying, we are not done. We have goals and we will intensify them. So they are going to really demolish this regime, and hopefully perhaps it may be for the last time.
Absolutely. The question was asked, how much time will it take to reach your goals? And he said, we're not even at, the end of the second day yet. Like we have goals, we have areas of attack. Absolutely stay in bomb shelters is what he's telling his own people. And also in those countries, and I want to get your view because you've been around that region. How surprising is it that Iran would attack the people who, if they weren't at least neutral, some of them were friends in the region?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been thinking about that as well. It's not just the US bases in these countries like Bahrain and Qatar and Kuwait. They have gone for luxury hotels, for airports, for these apartment buildings. And what I think the Iranians are doing is that they're thinking of the two things that will push President Trump back a little bit. And they think that he is afraid of a bigger regional war. And they think by attacking civilians, they are threatening that this could become a much bigger war. And they think President Trump might be afraid of that. Now, I don't think they know President Trump well enough. He said he has his goals and he'll stick to them. The other thing I think they are afraid or they think might pull President Trump back is the oil prices jumping up, the Straits of Hormuz being closed, and so they're threatening that as well. They've struck 2 ships there as well. So I think the reason they're carrying these attacks out is because they feel that is the 2 things that might try and pull President Trump back, his fear of this real growing conflict.
I want to share something. So Jackie DeAngelis was with me last hour. We wrapped up, and she said, before I leave, I have to just tell you this for your notes. 660 million a year in barrels of oil, 3 million a day. She said 50% of all of that was going to China. So if you close that Strait of Hormuz, you're cutting down that part of your profits. But wait,
and you'll be affecting China.
Right.
China doesn't want that.
But even more, also affecting 50% of Venezuela's output was going to China. So you've just cut off effectively Iran if they decide to close the Strait of Hormuz, and you've cut off Venezuela, because we know what happened there with the armada that was parked outside that country and they took a dictator out of play.
Yeah, Iran's economy will crumble very quickly either way, so shutting off the Strait of Hormuz doesn't work for it either.
But China.
And it affects China as well. And in fact, going for Venezuela first of all, taking Maduro, now going for Iran, you are breaking apart this axis of resistance. You might call it the axis of evil nowadays: China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. Once you start taking away these countries that China is backing up, it has global impact. So, what is happening right now is helping the people of Iran for freedom. It is helping the Middle East move away from this region where Iran is controlling terrorist organizations and proxies, and it is moving the world as well. It works on so many different levels if it is a success and if it goes well, and that's what we don't know how it will play out yet. But at this point, that seems to be the goal from the Trump administration, is to overthrow the regime.
Well, and the end goal is for peace, for the people there and for all of us around the world who Iran has been killing our military personnel wherever they possibly could. They strike fear in the hearts of Americans every time they say we need also not to exist, just like their neighbors in the Middle East. Your last quick thought.
And peace is not possible with the regime in power. They've made that very clear that they will continue attacking American interests. Death to America, death to Israel. Frankly, it is the regime in power there that prevents that.
Benjamin Hall, great to see you. Thank you for coming in. Well, new video from Israel shows the aftermath of its strikes on Iran, and the takedown of the terror regime is raising some new concerns about Iran's proxies. Will they lash out with acts of terror right here in the United States?
I think the FBI has a pretty good idea of who the sympathizers are. I think the FBI has had a historical interest in the Hezbollah and Hamas. Hezbollah has a bigger presence here in the United States.
No way this all fits.
Watch me. With something like this, we have 3, but we expect casualties. But in the end, it's going to be a great deal for the world, end of quote. Trump also says U.S. is ahead of schedule and suggests possible decapitation of Iranian leadership, meaning taking them all out, as many as they can. And of course, we just heard from the IDF Brigadier General and spokesperson in Israel saying, look, they have a long list of attacks and goals. They haven't even gotten through the second day yet. They are working steadily. The strikes on Iran are raising concerns for the safety of Americans worldwide and here at home. FBI Director Kash Patel posted, last night I instructed our counterterrorism and intelligence teams to be on high alert and mobilize all assisting security assets needed. Our joint terrorism task force throughout the country are working 24/7 as always to address and disrupt any potential threats to the homeland. Senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner, more on that. Jillian.
Good afternoon, Harris. Right now, most U.S. embassies in the Mideast remain under shelter-in-place orders more than 24 hours since the U.S. began strikes targeting Iran. That is for very good reason. There are several 100,000 Americans on the ground in the region. We have this exclusively from a senior official, Harris. They tell us the Department of State has no higher priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens overseas. We strongly encourage U.S. citizens to have their own departure plans in place and to not rely on a U.S. government-assisted departure. Department of State and interagency partners always examine contingencies based on the security situation. We have no announcement about assisted departure of private U.S. citizens at this time. In the interim, American embassies are now becoming targets for foreign anti-American, and anti-Israel protests in Baghdad. We saw hundreds of Iraqis attempt to storm the fortified Green Zone home to the U.S. Embassy. In Karachi, Pakistan, at least 9 protesters shot and killed overnight when crowds breached the outer wall of the U.S. consulate. Some Democratic lawmakers now, Harris, are beginning to place responsibility for the increased risk to Americans overseas squarely on President Trump. Take a listen.
President Trump ignored the advice.
Shame on you.
Advisors tore up the deal, and we all predicted at the time, if you tear up the deal, you will release Iran from the restrictions it agreed to. This war was almost in the cards as soon as the president made the decision that the United States would walk away from diplomacy.
Well, Secretary of State Rubio has been involved every step of the way throughout this operation, Harris, at Mar-a-Lago with President Trump. He has now stood up a 24/7 operational task force made up of officials across the federal government. They tell us to try and help as many Americans who are stranded overseas as possible. Harris.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much. I want to bring in Brent Sadler, retired Navy captain and former Pentagon official, now a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Brent, thank you for being with me. First of all, talk to me about what we know about all of those Iran militia and others who are hitting out, just basically just hitting out anybody, including people who might even support them in the Middle East. Who's on the ground?
So across the globe, actually here at home, there's also the threat of sleeper cells, as you mentioned earlier. But already our embassies and consulates are being attacked. There's also reports of Karachi, where there were also deaths in a lethal confrontation nearby our consulate there in Pakistan. I think this is going to be a sad reality because for far too long, this Iranian regime has been allowed to build up these networks. And it's going to take some time to roll it back. But by them lashing out like they are in their attacks against their neighbors in the Gulf, they are further accelerating their own demise, because now you're seeing a lot of these Middle Eastern countries aggressively standing up and pushing back. And so, yes, the threat is real, it's present, but it's going to be one that's going to have to be addressed at a very personal level, almost say by street, as we try to uproot these sleeper cells across the world.
Yeah, you know, it's everything becomes political here at home, but with the politics at play and so much coming, what would you say about, or directly to the American people about this operation and how historic it actually is?
Well, I'm old enough to remember the 1979 hostage crisis and the wave of international terrorism that it unleashed. You know, radical Islamic terrorism has its inspiration for direct action really from this revolution. So if this regime can be finally turn the page on to a different, more positive future, I think we also see the potential for the demise of this religiously inspired radical Islamic terrorism at the same time. It won't be completely gone, but one of the largest beneficiaries or protagonists of this is the Iranian regime that we're seeing right now, lashing out at everyone in its final gasp of life.
Do you have confidence that all of the push toward a nuclear weapon starts to go away by taking out the Ayatollah and his commanders, his inner circle?
No guarantees, it's still too early. Taking away the capability and the capacity, like the bombing last summer, Midnight Hammer, and what's unfolding now is necessary. But until the nature of this regime in Tehran is changed to one that's willing to live peacefully with its neighbors, treat its people with respect, and actually honor what's in their best interest, it will always be a threat. And so hopefully the Iranian people are given an opportunity to take back their country, put it on a more positive path.
Brent Sadler, thank you very much. And that's going to do it for us with a special Sunday edition of the Faulkner Focus. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, when we have men and women on the battlefield, pray for them, their families, and this country. God bless America. Fox News Sunday with Shannon Breen after the break.
Assets. The force, which included cutting-edge F-35s and F-22s, as well as electronic warfare planes, refueling tankers, and command and control aircraft, gives the president the ability to carry out a sustained air campaign against Iran in the days and weeks ahead. The operation triggering Iranian retaliatory drones and missiles at Israel and U.S. bases in the region. Despite the surge on Saturday, this ongoing conflict did not begin this weekend, as President Trump has been trying to convince the regime to give up its ambitions for a nuclear weapon for years, while warning Iran to stop supporting terrorist proxies during this term and throughout his first term in office. As far back as last March on this program, when back in office for just over a month, the president told me he tried to restart talks with a letter to Khamenei in a diplomatic gesture.
The people of Iran are great people, but they had a tough regime, and they'd meet and they'd be shot in the streets. I mean, it was a tough deal. But I would rather negotiate a deal. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we could make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily. But the time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter, saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini?
Yes.
When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you said you better negotiate, or we want you to
I didn't say
negotiate?
you better. I said, I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
And they did. Joining me now is four-star general and former commander of U.S. Central Command, commander of U.S. forces in Iraq in 2003, as well as in Afghanistan, former CIA director, currently head of Mideast operations for KKR, General David Howell Petraeus, joining me. General, thank you very much for being here this morning. Let me kick it off with the tragic news of three U.S. service members killed, 5 others wounded. Your reaction?
Well, the president warned of this, I think, Maria, rightly so, that in this kind of operation that possibility always exists, and tragically it has manifested itself.
And of course, this operation was a military campaign, including an important intelligence campaign. What is your reaction to the United States-led campaign and taking down Ali Khamenei?
Well, this is both an extraordinary military achievement by the Israelis and the Americans. Of course, hundreds of planes on each side, and then also hundreds of cruise missiles coming out of various ships. So a really massive effort. You used that word, and it is exactly correct. But in that, clearly, a lot of this was led by intelligence, precise intelligence, and a degree of stunning arrogance on the part of the Iranians, who I assume said, well, gee, they didn't attack when they normally do in the early hours of the morning, so we can get together and meet, which is how the intelligence developed that enabled the killing of the supreme leader and some dozens of others who were meeting with him, and then a number of other leaders of the various security forces of Iran, and then also going after any of the remaining air and ballistic missile defenses, then the retaliatory means, the most significant of which are the longer range missiles, and over time I'm sure going to continue to go after other elements of the security forces, their headquarters, and the shorter range retaliatory measures as well, which can hit the bases in the Gulf, and actually have hit, I think, a really foolish move by the Iranians was to hit the Arab countries in the Gulf, who really had wanted to stay out of this, but now are in it because of strikes against civilian targets in their countries, the Gulf states, and now their aircraft are already flying as part of the overall defensive effort, and we'll see if there is a decision about us using their bases again, which they had initially denied because they had wanted to stay on the sidelines.
And how significant would that be in terms of the U.S. using the bases of our allies in the Middle East too? I mean, and it is an extraordinary issue. You're right. The fact that the Iranians push back by striking other allies in the Middle East.
Well, essentially what we've had to do is fly off carriers. We have one in the Eastern Mediterranean, one, of course, in the Arabian Sea off the southern coast of Pakistan, and then also out of Jordan, and then even some European bases. That's what's been necessary. I don't know now if in the middle of this campaign we feel comfortable to go into these bases, whether we have what's called the bed down, the munitions and all of that, and fuel ready to go. But that could present an option to us. I think the focus right now is still on the Iranian retaliatory capabilities, and one of those is what they might do to mine the Strait of Hormuz or otherwise interfere with freedom of navigation from the Gulf. Keep in mind that about 20% of the world's crude oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz on a daily basis, and roughly about 20% of the liquefied natural gas as well. So that would be very, very significant. I'm sure that there will be a spike in the price of Brent crude as markets open, and perhaps likely for LNG as well. There was a ship, in fact, attacked just north of the tip of Oman that is on the outside, just outside the Strait of Hormuz. And Maersk, for example, said that it will stop transiting that strait and then also the other strait that has been interdicted by the Houthis that leads to the Suez Canal. So there'll be quite a focus on that, I'm sure, and still absolutely going after any way that they can respond, including whatever it was. We don't know yet what it was that killed our 3 soldiers and seriously wounded the others, but I'm sure that will be a focus as well.
I'd like to get your take on the capability of Iran at this point, but I also want to talk about what you just mentioned, the Strait of Hormuz, which opens up the conversation to China. And we've talked about China before, the U.S.'s #1 adversary here, and no doubt focused squarely on the continuation of a regular flow of oil to China. What's your take on Iran's capability, and then broaden out the conversation for us and the element of China and that angle?
Well, Iran still clearly has quite a capability, and keep in mind that it's not just the longer range missiles that can hit Israel, and of course had that terrible incident there just reported a few hours ago as well. Keep in mind that during the 12-day air campaign, despite all of the comprehensive air and ballistic missile assets of the entire region, because they're all integrated, despite that, still 5 to 7% of the missiles got through. So there is going to be that kind of tragedy from time to time. And then when you come to the shorter range missiles, there's quite a large number of those as well. But I'm sure that is a focus, absolutely a focus of Israeli and U.S. actions. When it comes to China, China's in a difficult position. In a way, they have a kinship with Iran, but they're also dependent on the oil that comes out of the strait. So I think they have to be very careful here. They have tried to achieve a balanced relationship with those on the west side of the Gulf and with Iran on the east side of the Gulf. I think they're really just going to stay on the sidelines. And then when it comes to Russia, they don't have anything to spare for Iran. In fact, their S-300, the supposedly sophisticated air and ballistic missile defense system they had before the 12-day war, the Israelis took down with the F-35s that we had provided to them. So I think that's where you are with, again, Iran's supporters, and where you are also with the potential impact, again, on global energy markets, noting that I don't think this will be enduring. even if it's mined, they can generally that can be cleared within a few weeks. It depends on the assets available. Needless to say, the mine sweeping ships, whether the UK will go in with this on this as well, they are flying defensively, according to the Prime Minister of UK yesterday.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning the UK. Great point there. But in talking about the reaction from China, you also have to mention the bold operation that the president just undertook in Venezuela as well, as a further tactic here when looking at the broader bold campaign. What are next steps? How do you think this government in Iran is formed? You know, you've got all different, perhaps a secular government. You've got the Shia, the Sunnis, the Persian government. I mean, what role do you expect leadership to take, and how does that look in Iran post Khomeini?
Yeah. Well, in this case, there is an interim council that has been announced. It's headed by the president, has a member of the Assembly of Experts, and another national security figure. We're not sure if they have even met. I'm sure that they are staying away from any electronic device. They're very deeply underground and so forth, and we'll see if that can actually step in and provide some degree of leadership, noting that probably all of these military elements had decks of targets already provided to them and the authority to engage those targets. The real question, of course, is will the Assembly of Experts convene rapidly, in a way a conclave that comes together and chooses the next supreme leader? Can that even happen during this kind of intense campaign? And then might there be some splintering in the security forces? The president mentioned in a social media post yesterday that there are numbers of security force elements that actually want to lay down their weapons, want to get the immunity that he has offered to them. Could someone lead that group and then also lead the population sufficiently to take down a regime which unfortunately probably still has somewhere around 1 million or so forces that it can turn out on the streets, and is very heavily armed and willing to shoot and kill its own people, as it demonstrated a few months ago in the demonstrations that took place. I think we'll find out that they killed 15, 20, or even more thousand and imprisoned many, many dozens of others. So the real question is, could there be an alternative to this very hardline ideological clerical regime? Could some other leader step up, and the people and those disaffected elements of the regime rally to that individual?
Right.
And I'm not sure that that is quite the base case.
Okay, we'll be watching all of this. General, thank you very much for being here this morning. Former CIA Director General David Petraeus. Thank you, sir. Joining me now with a look at the impact on America and beyond, the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs member, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. Senator, thank you so much for being here. And you have supported President Trump's strikes on Iran. Your reaction at this point today?
Well, first, I just want to extend my absolute condolences for the American services that lost their lives. They were all ready. They were all heroes, but now they've been lost, and now they'll be remembered as the kind of heroes. Absolutely grieve with their families. I'm so sorry for their loss. It's an absolutely a noble initiation. Initiative there, and absolutely epic fury was a noble pursuit.
Yes. And it was a noble pursuit, which of course is what the president said as well in his explanation on Saturday. Where does this go now? You have a vote coming up on the president's war powers. How will you vote?
Well, I would really encourage everybody that are watching right now, look up and read the War Powers resolution from 1973. And what that requires is that provide 48 hours of notification, and President Trump had done that. And then that means after 60 days, then they have to withdraw those soldiers, or perhaps even for an extra 30-day extension. Neither of those things have been broken for that. There are no American boots on the ground.
Amen.
So that's why.
Thank you, Senator Fetterman, being an honest man.
Absolutely not. It violates either one of that. And now people, they either don't understand that, or now what they're saying things that are just not true, that it wasn't illegal, or for that it did not violate War Powers Resolution from 1973.
Right. So you will vote in what way on Tuesday?
Well, of course, I'm going to vote it down. It's really it's not necessary. Honestly, the entire thing. It's really an empty gesture. There's not going to be any votes. But when you're not even breaking the War Powers Resolution, why are you even doing that?
Yeah.
So I mean, and let's also be clear. I'm tired of seeing people, go on social media and saying we can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, and Israel always deserves insecurity, and they deserve to exist. Well, if you're not willing to do about it, then it must just be empty words.
Yeah.
Are you really? Does it matter? No, but when President Trump was willing to do the kinds of things that are necessary to provide those things. Now, if you really want to prevent Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, he did try to negotiate with them. There has been treaties. There has been other negotiations that never worked. And they had 900 pounds of just below weapons grade weapons. So, here, do you really commit it, or are you just going to drop empty tweets and just try to have it both ways and pretend that it really matters? So, and that's why I'm going to support that. As a Democrat, I know that's absolutely the right thing to do. And so for me right now, the world is better. And now China and Russia are now condemning that. China is buying the Iranian oil, and that's how Iran underwrites the proxies and that regime.
Yeah.
So, and China's going to sell them their hypersonic missiles now too. That would be aimed right at American ships too.
Very important point ahead of the president's trip to Beijing, by the way. Senator, for all of those reasons, you are one of several Democrats who have supported this operation. Do you see increasing support from Democrats on President Trump's efforts with regard to Iran?
I don't know, but my support's there because especially when our military's been engaged, you have to go country over party.
Yeah.
I know what parts of my base demands, but I'm always going to stand with our country, and I'm going to stand with our military and the heroes as well. And how can't you celebrate that the Iranian leadership has been eliminated?
Yeah.
Doesn't that make the region more safe, more secure, more just, more free?
Yeah.
And now, of course, there's other things that it's possible right now. But right now, why can't you just acknowledge that? I put that out on my social media.
And be thankful.
People that are grieving that or now protesting that. Even on Columbia University, one of the student groups just announced on Twitter saying, "Death to America."
Wow.
It's just like, this is what I'm saying. Look at the kind of people that grieve for that garbage.
Yeah.
And like that's the point. And now I'm going to be on that side. For me, as a Democrat, I think Democrats country over party.
Yeah.
What the base demands means nothing to me. What's the right thing and the right side of history is what happened with Epic Fury.
Yeah, I saw a video earlier with Iranians and Israelis celebrating in the streets of North London. It was just an amazing sight. Senator, thank you for your leadership on this. We so appreciate your time this morning, sir.
Thank you.
Senator John Fetterman. Coming up next, next steps in Iran. Can a post-Khomeini Iran become a free Iran? Former Crown Prince of Iran before the Khomeini regime takeover. His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi with reaction here live. Also ahead, Armed Services Committee member Rick Scott, Senator from Florida, along with the Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Brian Mast. All ahead. Stay with us.